welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The hum of the office seemed louder today, a constant reminder that my world was changing. Until today, I was the director of marketing at Jensen and Hart. 10 years of relentless dedication, and now, just like that, I was out. They called it restructuring. I called it betrayal. I shuffled through the dimly lit corridor with my box of personal items, a sad collection of mementos from a decade of service. The office was almost empty, save for the low murmur of voices that seemed to echo off the walls, perhaps more out of my sense of isolation than any real noise. On impulse, I decided to visit Rick, my former deputy and the new director. Officially, I wanted to wish him well. Unofficially, I needed to gauge how deep the knife in my back was planted. As I neared his office, a strange noise halted my steps. It was a soft, rhythmic sound, muffled but unmistakable. My heart sank with each thud, a growing realization of what it could be. "Max, you're being paranoid," I muttered to myself, shaking off the dread. But despite my attempts at self-assurance, my hand trembled as I reached for the door handle. I opened the door without knocking. The scene before me unfolded like a slow-motion nightmare. There, in a position that burned my eyes and churned my stomach, was my wife, Clara, and Rick, intimate, entangled, unfathomable. The gasp that escaped Clara's lips was the sharpest stab. "Max," she exclaimed, scrambling to her feet, her face flushed with guilt. Rick stood too, adjusting his tie, his face a mask of feigned calm. "Max, this isn't," Clara started, her voice a desperate whine. "Save it," I cut her off, my voice eerily calm amidst the storm raging inside me. The betrayal was twofold, slicing through the remnants of my professional and personal life. Rick had the gall to step forward, his hand outstretched as if this were a mere misunderstanding. "Max, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain, Rick," I said, my voice steady, belying the chaos in my head. I stared at them, the two people I trusted most, now the architects of my humiliation. Clara's eyes welled with tears, her hands nervously playing with the hem of her blouse. "Max, please, let's talk about this. It's not what it looks like." "It looks like betrayal, Clara." "It feels like betrayal," I replied, the coldness in my voice surprising even me. I turned my back on them, a symbolic gesture more than anything. As I walked out, the weight of what I had seen cemented a resolve within me. They had taken my career, my dignity, my love. I wouldn't let them take my future too. Outside, the cool air hit my face, and I breathed it in, trying to wash away the suffocation of the last few moments. I was broken, yes. But out of brokenness comes the resolve for retribution. Revenge, a word I never thought I'd entertain, now pulsed through my veins with a clarity that frightened me. I would rebuild, but not before I ensured they could not simply walk away from the wreckage they caused. As I drove away from what had been my second home for a decade, the city lights blurred into streaks of color. My mind raced with possibilities, each darker than the last. I was no longer the Max who walked into that office this morning. I was something else now, something forged in the crucible of betrayal. And I would have my due. The night is cold, colder than usual, or perhaps it's just the void in my chest that makes it feel so. My hands grip the steering wheel as I drive aimlessly, the streets of the city nothing more than a blur. After what feels like hours, I pull over near a dimly lit bar, a place where no one knows my name. Inside, the clink of glasses and the low hum of conversations create a cocoon of anonymity. I settle into a dark corner, my mind spinning. The anger is a living thing inside me, demanding action, demanding justice. I order a drink, something strong, and as I wait, I overhear a conversation from the table next to me. "You heard about Jensen and Hart?" one burly man says to another, his voice tinged with excitement. "Big shake-up. Heard from my cousin they're cutting more than just fat." whole divisions might go under. My ears prick up at the mention of my former company. It's a lead, a potential ally. I turn, my interest barely masked. Sorry to intrude, I start, my voice rough. You were saying about Jensen and Hart. The man, mid-40s and rugged, eyes me warily. Who's asking? Max, I extend my hand, which he shakes after a brief hesitation. Formerly of Jensen and Hart. Just got the axe. Tough break, he nods, a spark of sympathy in his eyes. I'm George. Yeah, my cousin works in logistics. Says the place is a ticking time bomb. Everyone's tense, waiting for the next shoe to drop. Seems I left at the right time, then, I say, forcing a half smile. George's companion, a lean man with sharp features, chimes in. You think you got it bad? Listen, Jensen and Hart is just the start. This kind of thing is happening everywhere. But some of us, he lowers his voice, leaning closer, we're not just sitting back and taking it. Intrigued, I lean in. What do you mean? We're thinking of pushing back, George explains. A sort of coalition. Employees, past and present. If the company's going down, we're not letting the big wigs walk away without a scratch. The idea strikes a chord within me. A coalition could mean information, resources, and more importantly, it could mean power. Power to exact revenge not just personally against Rick and Clara, but against the company that threw me away. I'm in, I say without hesitation. What do you need from me? George and his companion exchange looks. We meet tomorrow night, discuss the plan. You sure you're up for this? It's not just talk, we're going to take real action. The decision feels like stepping off a cliff. I've got nothing left to lose, I reply, my voice laced with a darkness that matches my resolve. We exchange numbers and part ways, the seed of vengeance well and truly planted. As I walk back to my car, the night somehow doesn't feel as cold. There's a fire growing within me, fueled by betrayal and the promise of retribution. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Tomorrow, I fight back. And somewhere deep inside, a voice warns me of the path I'm choosing. But it's too late. I can't turn back now. The die is cast, and I am its willing prisoner. The bar where we agreed to meet buzzes with the low murmur of conversations, but tonight, it feels like the epicenter of an impending storm. I arrive early, scanning the dimly lit room for George and his companion from last night. Spotting them at a secluded table, I make my way over, my determination masking the unease that twists in my gut. George greets me with a firm nod, and his companion, now introduced as Liam, does the same. Max, glad you could make it, Liam says, his eyes sharp, assessing. Wouldn't miss it, I reply, sliding into the booth opposite them. The server brings over a round of beers, and the clink of our glasses is a silent acknowledgement of the pact we're about to forge. So, I start, eager to get to the heart of the matter. What's the plan? George leans in, his voice low. We've got several folks from different departments ready to join up. Logistics, HR, even a couple from upper management. They're all fed up with how things are being run, especially after how they handled your situation. I nod, the bitterness at the mention of my dismissal sharp in my throat. And what's the end game? Disruption, Liam cuts in, his gaze intense. We hit them where it hurts. We have access to financial records, internal communications. We leak what needs to be leaked, expose the rot. I feel a thrill at the thought, mixed with a dangerous edge of apprehension. You're talking about serious repercussions. We could all be looking at more than just being fired. That's why we need to be smart, George interjects. We make sure our tracks are covered. We have people skilled in this kind of thing. And what about security? I ask, the practical part of me needing to know the risks. Liam smiles, a thin, wry twist of his lips. That's where our friend here comes in. He gestures to a new figure approaching our table, a woman with a confident stride and an alert gaze. This is Eva, Liam introduces. Ex-cybersecurity for a big tech firm. She's our insurance policy. Eva takes a seat, her presence commanding. Gentlemen, she nods, then turns to me. Max, right? I've been briefed on your situation. I'm here to make sure whatever we do it without leaving a trail. I study her, impressed and slightly intimidated. Sounds like you know your stuff. She gives a half smile. Let's just say I have a vested interest in seeing corporations like Jensen and Hart get what they deserve. The conversation shifts to specifics, from potential leaks to strategic disruptions. We talk about timing, about coordination, about potential fallout and how to handle it. With each detail discussed, I feel the weight of what we're planning grow heavier. As the meeting wraps up, George places a hand on my shoulder. We're in this together, Max. You're not alone in this. I nod, the solidarity a small comfort amidst the brewing chaos. Thanks, George. It means more than you know. Walking back to my car, the night doesn't just feel cold, it feels charged, electric with the promise of action. I'm in deeper than I ever imagined, part of something that could change everything. And as I drive away, the city lights streaking past, I realize that there's no turning back now. I have chosen my path, and whatever comes, for better or worse, I am ready. The game is on, and I am fully committed to seeing it through, no matter the cost. The days leading up to the execution of our plan are tense and charged with a palpable energy. We work in shadows, our meetings clandestine, each of us aware of the gravity of our actions. Every step we take, every piece of information we gather, brings us closer to the edge of a precipice from which there is no turning back. Tonight is the culmination of all our efforts. We gather one last time in the basement of an old warehouse owned by one of our supporters. The air is thick with anticipation and the faint scent of mildew. Eva sets up her equipment on a makeshift table, her fingers flying over the keyboard with practiced ease. We're ready to go live, she announces, her voice steady. Once we hit send, there's no stopping it. George nods, looking around the room at each of us. This is it. Are we all in agreement? A chorus of murmured assents fills the room, and I find my voice. Let's do it. Eva presses the enter key, and within seconds, the damning evidence of corruption, embezzlement, and unethical practices at Jensen and Hart begins flooding the internet. We watch as the first reactions appear online, a mix of shock and outrage. But then, the unexpected happens. Our phones start ringing, buzzing with incoming calls and messages. Among them, a number I hadn't seen in a long time, Clara. Hesitating only for a moment, I step away to answer. Clara. Max, listen to me, her voice is urgent, scared. You need to stop all of this now. You don't understand what's going on. What are you talking about? I ask, confusion and anger warring within me. It's Rick, he's not who you think he is. He's been setting you up from the beginning. He knew about your plans to expose the company. My heart skips a beat. What? How? We've been careful. He's been using me, Max. He found out I was still in contact with you and he threatened me. He's been feeding you information, knowing you'd use it to try and bring down Jensen and Hart. It's all been a setup to get rid of you for good, to frame you as the mastermind behind a sabotage plot. The room spins as her words sink in. I need proof, Clara. I can't just take your word for it. Just come to Rick's office. I'm here now. I've found documents, emails. I can show you everything. I agree and hang up, my mind reeling with the implications. I relay the message to George and Eva, who look as stunned as I feel. We need to check this out, George says. If it's true, we could all be in serious trouble. We leave immediately, heading to Rick's office. The building is quiet, the halls echoing our hurried footsteps. When we arrive, the door is slightly ajar, and Clara is waiting, a stack of documents in her hand. Look at these, she thrusts them at me, and as I scan them, the truth becomes painfully clear. Emails between Rick and a contact at a rival company, plans to use the fallout from our leaks to his advantage, to cement his position and frame us. I feel a cold fury settle in my bones. We need to go public with this, now. No, Clara grabs my arm, her expression earnest. I have a better idea. She explains quickly, a plan forming that uses Rick's own tactics against him. We work through the night, setting the trap that would use Rick's planned meeting with his contact to expose him. The next morning, as Rick meets his contact in a crowded cafe, we live-stream the conversation to the world. His shock is palpable, his career over as the authorities close in. In the aftermath, as we watch the police lead Rick away, Clara turns to me. I'm sorry for everything, Max. I never wanted any of this to happen. I nod, the anger subsiding, replaced by a weary relief. I know. Let's just end this chapter, for both of us. As we part ways, the sun rises over the city, its light a promise of new beginnings. My path forward is uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I feel free from the chains of deception and betrayal. The game was over, and against all odds, I had emerged victorious.